apparently one director calls up Salubhai and basically tells him you have to tell him to come for a 6 o'clock shot. And then apparently
6 a.m.
6 a.m. shot. So the producer says, you only talk to him. Then there's a conference call and he's on the call and like tomorrow 6 o'clock shot, sunrise. And he says, Abhay, doodh wala uthta hai 6 baje ka.
What are your views on nepotism? Is it good or is it something to get away from?
Right.
But there are so many people like Fardeen Khan, okay, as an example. You know, when he was on stage, you could tell that this man cannot act. Like it was pretty evident. Like, you know, sadly.
I feel that we are the only species on this planet that is aware of that our time is limited.
What is the current situation in Indian cinema with the Indian director's mindset? Does he want to have more? Before it was about people as audiences coming in just to watch the songs. Back then that was the mentality. Today, do you like putting songs into your movies?
What if I was the only person on this planet? Would I still be making films? Right.
I think you are so much more grounded.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I know that it's temporary also.
Yeah. Is it real?
It is. It's very temporary.
Yeah.
It's very temporary because once the spotlight is off and you go out of the radar, I mean, you have to keep dancing. You have to put on your dancing shoes and keep dancing all the time till your feet hurt. Yeah.
We are in the presence of cinematic royalty over here.
Yeah.
We've got the Telugu industry's Tarantino around here. Tharun Bhascker, welcome to Snarky Devils. And we've gone to school together as well, and we've known each other for a while, and we're connecting after a while as well. But I always thought, if we get you on the podcast, we must try and talk about cinema in general rather than just your next upcoming film. And just to start it off, like, how important has cinema been for you? Like, how does it shape your identity and your outlook? How does it affect the common man also?
For me personally, when I started off, I used to do a lot of art. My mom was an artist, commercial artist, and then she was teaching in school. So for me, art was kind of an escape because there was a lot of bullying that I was subjected to by family, friends, everything. So, so that basically, I was a solid introvert, and my only escape was art. And for that reason, I used to experiment with different mediums. So in school, if you remember, I was pushed into every competition possible by my parents.
You were seen as the creative kid, like who could paint and make movies and everything, like jack of all trades.
Yeah, but there was a lot of
SUPW king.
Yeah, that also leaves a lot of trauma behind. So all that used to happen, but it was not really appreciated by family and everything. A lot of people used to say, what is he going to do next? Is he going to paint on the walls and earn money? So all that shit used to happen. So that really affected me as a child growing up because there was a lot of awards that, I mean, everywhere you go, you get a participation certificate or some kind of thing. Right. So that kind of also scarred me in a weird way. But eventually, I finally stumbled upon this medium. Which is audiovisual medium, and I felt I should explore it, and it's an ocean, and every day I'm just learning, and there's something very significant to it. I mean, over the years, it took me a while to understand that cinema actually completes us in a way, because it is a very effective form of communication.
Yeah, it is.
Because I think that it communicates on a subconscious level. Consciously, we might have a lot of diction, a lot of intellect, but we don't communicate masterfully through emotions. And I think cinema does that.
Definitely.
It crosses all boundaries of language, culture, and if it is made well on a much deeper level, it talks to your subconscious, and I think that's
an inspiration.
Yeah, and I think that is the highest level of.
It's such an influence also because, for example, like they banned for some period smoking on screens. I'm like, why? Because apparently a lot of people see their favorite actors smoking and thus they're like, even I want to start smoking.
Yeah, but
it really just...
It is a very important medium. It's aspirational. You see your hero on screen. You see your heroine on screen. You want to be like them. You want to live that life because that is a life that I guess it's a. Of course, it's virtual, but the life is that what you would want to be. Like mainly with cinema, it's aspirational.
Correct.
So when you want to achieve that, whatever it is, maybe if it's smoking or if it's drinking, then that becomes aspirational. So any kind of cinema is going to impact a person, and in a very, very deep-rooted level, if it's coming from their idol.
Right.
Like, a lot of you're looking at them on the big screen and it's coming and you're receiving it. It's really going to impact you on a very emotional and deep level.
Yes.
And but more than that, tell me, when you got into cinema,
right,
how difficult was it? Like, were you accepted because you're not part of it, right? And people say that the industry is very tight knit.
Yeah,
very tight knit. And how were you received? Like, how did you manage?
So basically, first of all, I think they compartmentalize this whole thing as an industry, but it doesn't work as an industry because if you want to make a film in today's world, I think you just need to understand the dynamics of storytelling, and you need to also master your craft, and you need to get together people who can actually communicate. You can communicate your vision with, and it's an amalgamation of different crafts.
Sure.
And as a director, you're only supposed to direct.
Right.
It's like a metamorphosis. So you're just going to kind of accept a lot of people. I mean, if you're not egoistic about your art form, you have to be very open to actually allow other people to come in and then form something that probably wasn't your vision, but you see it this way now.
Right. Yeah, so, like they say, too many cooks spoil the broth.
Yeah.
No, but do you allow people to sometimes tinker with your vision?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, that's what he's saying, right? Yeah. He's saying that it evolves together.
Yeah, it's a very, very gratifying experience if done right. But then suddenly this burden of the industry kind of weighs down on you because of misinformation and also a lot of stereotypes that are formed.
Yes.
Because this field has red hot attention.
Yeah.
It is misconstrued in a lot of ways, and a lot of rumors, a lot of baseless stereotypes are formed, because of which a lot of newcomers also hesitate to come into this, because you assume that it's all tightly knit, because they all hang out together or you see them at events. Doesn't work like that.
Yes.
Ultimately, what we have to understand is it is very democratic. It's a freedom of speech. You want to say something, you want to tell your story.
Yes.
You have to get some people together and exhibit it to people, and you have that right.
Right.
And the moment you understand this in totality, you have a sense of freedom and you have a sense of power to go ahead and do it. So that happened for me I was very blissfully ignorant about all this.
Yeah.
This learning comes much later. Yeah. But I was blissfully ignorant, and I just wasn't comfortable to actually go the usual route of actually aiding or actually packaging my film or, for a lack of better word, sucking up to big actors and trying to, make a film around it.
Makes sense, yeah.
So for me, it was all about, I want to tell this story. This urge is there. I don't care about the end game at all. And I was blissfully ignorant. I think that thank God for that. Yes. Because if I had known too much, I think it would have weighed down on me.
Of course.
And I wouldn't have taken that leap of faith.
The most nerve-wracking thing out of all industries, in your business, if you succeed or not, it's a very gradual, long process. But in making a movie, which you spend 1.5, 2 years to put your blood, sweat and tears into, it's decided on that Friday morning first show.
Yeah.
How nerve-wracking is that?
So now that's not the scene. It was very nerve-wracking initially because I remember pacing up and down the hall every time the audience was there, because I cringe at my own work. And I do not like it at all the moment I put it up.
All artists are like that. No?
Yeah, and I'm way too over the top.
Overtly critical.
Overtly critical about myself, and I'm very sensitive to criticism also. Yeah. But that also I've matured along the way, I could say. But I was pacing up and down the hall. I wouldn't look at my own work. All kinds of eccentric shit I would pull off. For me it was like that. But now the situation is very different. Because now I think OTTs have come in, and now there's a very democratic way of putting your film out there. Everybody gets to watch it. You're not fighting for a space, like a theatrical space. Right? And now the internet has taken over, but it's also polarized. So every film has its own audience. You just have to find them. So the right marketing and the understanding of your target demographic. Are you catering to them, and where do they exist, and how do you promote your video or your content to them? That is the end game. And we'll have to wash off, because now I think there's a generational shift in ideology also. Now I'm kind of doing a very heavy unlearning, because you're conditioned to think on a Friday. And what happens because of that is you're forced to actually tell stories a certain way for a certain audience and for everyone. For everyone. But now that's changed, and I think the younger generation, they are free from that burden. And they're doing different things in different mediums, and I actually envy that. And for me to actually get myself to that stage, I have to do a lot of unlearning, because then you think very freely. And I'm very, very happy for the next generation, because they don't have to think the same way I do.
It's so much. They've come in this age where it's just free thinking, free speech. It's so much easier, and there's so much audience. Like before, you had to wait.
Correct.
And right now everybody has a smartphone. You're looking at it, like, for example, TikTok or Instagram stories. Like I know people who I would not agree with the content, quite honestly. I'd be like, what is this? What is going on? But these people have 5 million followers. They have 10 million followers.
Correct.
And there is a scope for sale. And it's insane. It's just so tough for me to understand this, because it's so difficult for somebody to put yourself out there and be judged by these many people.
That is a very difficult.
But Tharun, one question I wanted to say: why are we talking about OTTs? Does the industry see the OTT platform as a boon or a blessing or a threat? Because I'm sure you make more money from cinematic release than an OTT.
Just like any monopoly or any power, basically they're very resistant to change. But it's a process of evolution, because when film cameras were there, they were hesitant to actually shoot with digital cameras. Once they understood the power of technology and the ease that comes in with it, then they kind of eventually shifted. So OTTs would have failed if they did not bring in a large revenue stream, and they did, and a lot of people started voting for it, and eventually people accepted it, and there's a huge revenue stream now. So it doesn't make sense for them to resist it anymore. So
I think it always complements. You still have your theatrical release, but you also have an OTT now. So it works both ways. Why would you want to challenge against the other? That makes no sense.
That's true.
So but in another nutshell, what is your journey been like? How have you dealt with stardom? How have you dealt with fame? How have you dealt with people recognizing you and ridiculing you for your work or appreciating you for your work? How have you dealt with that?
Everybody loves attention, but you receive too much of it, you start getting scared.
Exactly, right? Everybody does love it.
Anonymity is something which we don't value right now.
We don't
but
value.
He's I just want to go to a restaurant and not get mobbed.
So sometimes you need to stay relevant. Sometimes, it's a it's a double-edged sword. Man. So initially, at least, what happened was I would, as I told you, I'm an introvert, and I just wanted to stay in my own bubble, keep doing things like that. I would be very hesitant to meet anybody in the industry. And it was very difficult for me to actually socialize in the industry, because I did not know who they were, a lot of people. And my lack of information or knowledge about that actually made me look very arrogant. But in fact, I really was a dumb guy who didn't know who they were and how I would have to treat them, So eventually I learned, because I fell into a lot of problems because of that. I understood that it's very important to understand who's there, who's not there, and all that.
You have to give that respect, sir.
That happened.
All of that.
But very interesting story is I made that film. It was a very independent film. I pulled in some finance from a couple of people. Pellichoopulu was the first film.
For people who...
So Pellichoopulu was my first film, and when I tried to write that as a rom-com. I've tried pitching it to Phantom, Anurag Kashyap's firm. They came back, they didn't want a rom-com. I pitched it to almost every producer here, a lot of actors, and faced a lot of rejection. And through that journey, I realized that rejection is a part of the game. And that humbled me a lot. But also, again, immediately what happened was my father passed away. He couldn't see the film. At that point of time, it was very financially also very daunting for us. But something just stuck along, and I just took the film like a madman. I was just showing it to everybody. Everybody rejected it. Because we used sync sound. We didn't go for ADR, additional dialogue recording or dubbing. So we used sync sound, and the performances were very real. And through that, the Telangana accent also came out in the forefront. And coincidentally, it was the formation of Telangana state.
Oh, lovely.
So people found a lot of identity in that film as well. Coincidentally. It was then one producer picked it up. He really loved it. He predicted that it will run for 100 days. I thought he was joking or he was off. It ran for 100 days. It ran for 100 days, got 2 national awards. All that was great. But thank you so much. But the same people who rejected me, suddenly the spotlight was on. And then they came in with bouquets and flowers and appreciation. It just shook my ground because for me, I didn't know how to take it. It was very confusing for me. And that learning, I think, more than the film's success or anything, the failure, the rejection, the rock bottom that I hit, and then the ups that I saw, actually stabilized me in a way because I remember Barack Obama's quote, there are 2 very important, very hard phases, tough phases in a man's life, success and failure.
Of course.
So that the impact of that you only experience when you get it. And that changed me, grounded me forever, and it made me a much wiser man.
I guess you can always learn from your failure. You will be humbled by your failure. And when you do get that appreciation that you deserve, I think you are so much more grounded.
100%. And I know that it's temporary also.
Is it real?
It is. It's very temporary. It's very temporary because once the spotlight is off and you go out of the radar, I mean, you have to keep dancing. You have to put on your dancing shoes and keep dancing all the time till your feet hurt. So somewhere down the line, you have to realize what is your end goal as an artist. And what do you want makes you kind of spiritual in a way. And keeps you grounded.
So, Tharun, your cinema, from whatever I've seen and whatever I've heard also, is very, very different from what the norm is, where there's a superstar and then everyone's dancing around trees and all. Yours was like the Dil Chahta Hai of the Telugu industry, Pellichoopulu. It really shook the world, shook India for sure. Was known. Like, what sort of genre of filmmaking inspires you? What, like growing up, what has been your favorite type of genre?
My favorite has been Shawshank Redemption. The moment I watched that film, it just really moved me. Human stories. For me, I remember Dalai Lama's quote, the purpose of an artist is to instill hope. For this, I'll have to tell you why cinema for me. Because I feel that we are the only species on this planet that is aware of that our time is limited. And with that knowledge comes a great deal of loneliness. And insecurity, depression. Depression and all that. So we are constantly curious. We want more. We want to attach ourselves with wealth or fame or whatever, and we want to escape our life. So that is why we have conversations. Conversations is a form of escapism, and the ultimate form of escapism is cinema. And the purest form of escapism is to instill hope. So for me, I like human stories a lot that instill hope. Because the honest truth is, it's a drab life. We're heading nowhere. We're heading nowhere, but we might as well inspire each other and continue to live for whatever it's worth.
So, okay, if you have to, like you mentioned Shawshank Redemption one. If you have to say 5 movies which every person, cinema goer, must watch, English, Hindi, Telugu, Shawshank is one. There's this very famous director called Jandyala Garu. He's in Telugu. He's done some amazing witty comedies which are timeless, and I think they should be translated to other languages. I don't know if they're very deeply rooted in the cultural context here, but
they're very funny films. Ahana Pellanta is one film that I think people should watch because I watch it. It gives me a great deal of relief. And then Pursuit of Happiness.
Pursuit of Happiness.
Films like that. I don't think just
Human
Pursuit of
story,
Happiness. All Pixar films. Because they're very well crafted. Very well crafted. Shawshank Redemption.
One
The
more.
Terminal.
The Terminal.
Nice.
Okay.
These are the kind of films that I really love. At the core of it, something moves me. It stays with me. It's a very happy film.
Any Hindi?
Hindi Dil Chahta Hai.
Dil Chahta Hai?
Yeah, absolutely love Dil Chahta
Shiraz,
Hai.
what about you? Any top 5?
So my favorite film that I can watch over and over and over again is Remember the Titans.
Oh shit, I've been watching.
It's Denzel Washington.
Okay.
It's also a human story. It's about oppression, black oppression.
Right.
It's a football team that they kind of in the 60s the schools get merged and
Right.
they whatever. So it's really inspiring. It always gets a tear to my eye every time I watch it. Whenever it's my feel good movie.
Nice.
So I always watch that, and I love Sanjay Leela Bhansali films.
Very nice. Okay.
Yeah, so I love Bajirao Mastani is one of my favorite movies. I can watch it anytime again.
Bajirao Mastani.
Yeah. Dude, like I think his storytelling,
The sets and everything.
it's I don't know, he's got this way of telling the story. It's a little magical, I feel like. It's always I don't know, I enjoy it.
Okay.
And the other one that I really enjoyed was Avatar. That was something that I feel everyone should watch. It's a proper
Event.
event. It's an event.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
If I have to name 5, I'll do quickly. For me, Lagan, I feel, is one where I every time watch that final ball of that match and I can still cry no matter what.
Yeah.
It's the brilliant original storytelling. That is one. Inception.
Nice.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Like the editing work put into making 5 a dream within a dream within a dream. That concept, my God, it was outstanding in that particular sense. The Korean movie, Train to Busan.
Right.
So, I feel bad also.
I totally forgot The Dark Knight.
The Dark Knight was also
The Dark Knight.
brilliant movie.
Always,
Christopher Nolan
always watch
is
that.
artist to the max, of course. Of course, a Tarantino movie, you have to mention some. Kill Bill, the series was brilliant. Like Tarantino's
Django Unchained.
Django is okay. I think a little bit too much of flashiness, but A Train to Busan, the Korean, the Korean and Japanese mindset of making movies. When you see that, you say, I have to unlearn whatever I've learned because we've only seen Bollywood, a little bit of Tollywood, and Hollywood.
Yeah.
When you see the Asians, the Far East, how they come up with movies, how they do horror. Like we've forgotten how to do horror movies now because I think our audience is afraid to go for these theaters. But there's an art to doing horror films, and Train to Busan is a movie where you just don't know who's going to survive at the end of this thing. There's a zombie apocalypse happening, and it's a very, very I would say mindfuck sort of person. But I like that. I like seeing a movie where I'm just like, what did I just go through? My God!
Yeah.
Like
I used to love those the heavy on you kind of movies, but I more enjoy feel good factor. Like
Right.
at the end of the movie, I want to feel good when I'm walking out.
Right.
I don't want to be like sad.
Right.
That's something because there's already so much negativity in my life. There's so much going on. There's ups and downs.
Right.
So when I go and I'm losing myself
Right.
in this experience of storytelling and cinema,
Right.
I want to come out happy, saying that something good came out of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, like for example, for storytelling, George R.R. Martin, who did Game of Thrones,
yeah.
he says, I do not want a situation where it's always the good guy wins and the bad guy loses. I want the reader to be afraid to turn to the next page because
what was it at the end?
at the end of it, it was still a little bittersweet sort of an ending as well. But
still
it's
the good guy one.
But you never know. That's the thing. That's the beauty of it. Like the audience should not be like, okay, this is the actor ka entry. Now actor will do one song and actor will beat the villain at the end.
But I know.
We should be done with this.
Yeah.
It's good. We had a good 40 decades of that for 40 years.
But he's just like done with this. Like, doesn't want anymore.
Needs some surprises, some little something fresh.
See, I know you want excitement from life. But
Yeah, exactly. And with cinema as well, like how Tharun is doing very, very different films because I think with Indian cinema, it became so patriarchal. Too much of focus on the man, the hero. where the hero like a Amir Khan or a Shah Rukh Khan or Akshay Kumar, they can command in the hundreds of crores, whereas an Aishwarya or a Deepika cannot.
No, but
that.
Talking about economics, I can't say anything. But like this, that's why I like Sanjay.
But the audience is coming for that guy. Not many audience will come. Oh, Deepika ki movie hai.
Yeah, but like that's why I'm saying Sanjay Leela Bansali's movie in this Bajirao Mastani, the woman also has a very strong lead. Like it's a very strong lead. Like it's not like one is lesser than the other.
But are they pulling in the crowds? That's the problem. It's because we got very used to just the hero ka entry, and the hero is carrying this thing.
I don't think so. It's always a story that inspires me. Like, the hero can pull you to the theatre. But when you get out of the theatre, you have to feel good.
Yes.
So that maybe only comes with a good story, I feel, and if it's told well. And quite honestly, I love reality. So there is, I would not enjoy so much of sci-fi as much as I enjoy reality something that's more real, so I'm happier that way. But I love all cinema. Like I'm not, I would not say, okay, I won't watch this because this is like this. I would like to enjoy everything.
Correct.
And I think you must, because it's all an art. Now it's just like he said, it's you go in there to lose yourself, take some amount of time. You're there, you just it's time off your regular life, and you're going to see something else that is going to either inspire you or pain you or whatever it may be. But it's a story that you must see, and you should understand the person who's telling it. Like you have to see it from that person's perspective. Now, if you think, he's dancing around the trees, yes, of course that's what's happening, but you have to go with the mindset that it's a story, and I want to see it in this entirety of what it is, and then probably judge it.
Definitely. No, like Schindler's List is one movie I forgot to.
Schindler's List is good
beautifully. Like, who's been your favorite director?
My favorite director of all time is Mani Ratnam, because he has an aesthetic sense of how he. It's also about how he writes the scene, how the blocking of the actors is. You lose yourself, even if there's song and dance, somewhere you start looking at, reflecting on your own life.
Correct.
And he has that magic.
So that's the thing. Like you must see yourself there.
Yeah,
you must
absolutely.
See yourself,
if it's not relatable, what is it?
Yeah, what's the point?
But like in Indian cinema, or pan-Indian cinema, we have this culture of songs. Now lately it's gone off, or maybe they sneak in the song without the actual dance crew behind you. But what do you feel?
Surya, why are you obsessed with this dance group?
No, but but it is an identity of Indian cinema. You go abroad, they say, Bollywood, I love your dance scenes and all like that. That's what they see. They don't see
like they also say the cows on the road, but that's not true also.
No, I know. Yeah. But like, what is the current situation in Indian cinema with the Indian director's mindset? Does he want to have more? Before it was about audiences coming in just to watch the songs. Back then, that was the mentality. Today... Right. Do you like putting songs into your movies?
So the thing is, we as a culture, we're used to song and dance. I mean, the mother singing a lullaby, and eventually the sangeets and the barats and everything. Every occasion has a song, dance, and we celebrate that for as long as we can remember.
Yes.
There's always been song and dance. Now I look at that as a narrative device. Doesn't necessarily have to, whether it should be there, whether it shouldn't be there is not the thing. How are you making a conscious decision in your craft using it? So just like a lot of filmmakers have mentioned, you can encapsulate time. Like, you can show something which happened in just 3 seconds or 3 minutes and show the beauty of it. Or you can just talk about somebody's 10 years of growth in a 3-minute montage. So you can use that as a narrative device. And it's going to be enjoyable by a lot of audience because they relate to everything through song and dance. I mean, a certain taste reminds you of your mum, right? A certain song reminds you of your family, and that's us. We can't strip that away completely, but we need to see how we can use that to talk about stories which are local but still relevant globally. So that is how I think we should perceive it.
And off topic, what was the most difficult part of your direction? Like, what did you find most difficult? Like,
the difficult part is always writing. Because as you said, a lot of the industry people get used to a certain format. And there is a general structure to telling, right? So there's a certain structure. How we remember our memories is also in a certain structure, apparently. How it began, how were the highs, and how it ended. So these guys, when they're kind of writing stories, they fall into a certain structure. It's called a 3-act structure, 4-act structure, 5-act structure. It's been devised by all these things. So I think understanding the nuances of storytelling, studying characters, understanding their psychological trauma, of how they react, and it makes you very empathetic as a writer, because you don't see flaws, and you just don't see somebody as a bad person or a good person. You just see them in a very empathetic manner, and to learn that, to dig deep into your own psyche, to understand where that story is coming from, and to put yourself out there honestly, is a very big part of the process.
Yes.
So writing is very difficult.
So what was your inspiration to do Pellichoopulu? Like, how did you come to write it? How did you come to think about it?
So that was a very conscious thing. So I knew that rom-coms have a very big market.
Right.
I cannot start off with a thriller, or thrillers have a very small market compared to rom-coms. And the biggest power in the Indian film industry financially is getting the families to the theatre.
Right.
If you can do that with a clean film, the genre has to be a rom-com.
Sure.
Because that's when people start relating themselves. I mean, the kind of relatability that rom-coms have, the family rom-coms have in India is huge. So that I really realized a long time back, and put that to effect while making short films.
Right.
And surprisingly, it worked, because rom-coms have the highest number of views. So it was a no-brainer for me to actually write a rom-com, but I had to start looking at characters in my family.
Right.
The things that actually worked, the differences between each accent, how it can trigger humor.
Yeah.
So that was a major inspiration.
Okay, that's lovely.
that luckily
You also, besides directing in this movie, I think Falaknuma Das or something, you acted in it also.
Yeah.
Like I saw bits of it, and it just looked so natural from you. My God, like I would never think he was an introvert when I saw his acting scenes in it.
Yeah.
So what is that like, being an actor versus being a director? What is more enjoyable?
So that's what I mean. My father, all credit to my father, because he quickly realized that I'm an introvert and I'm extremely shy. So he used to push me for all stage competitions, events, debates, whatever. And I used to suck at most of them.
Right.
But I quickly realized that it's okay. I mean, the most important part is to put yourself out there, because once you start getting used to humiliation, you realize that it's no bigger deal. Because at the end of the day, you're with your comfort zone, and the people who are there will be there no matter what.
Right.
Like, you
Of
know.
course.
So that was a very important learning, and eventually that crept into filmmaking as well. Because I always wanted to be behind the camera and try to do my thing that way. But when I was explaining to the actors, one of my actors, he went ahead and directed Falaknuma Das. So he said, "Why don't you come and act?" And I was petrified by that thought.
Wow.
And just because it hit me deep, and there was a deep sense of fear, I wanted to do it. Because that's what my dad always used to tell me. Are you scared? Then go do it.
Lovely. Yeah.
So that kind of triggered me into going ahead and doing it. Took it up as a challenge. Because I was very conscious about I would cringe at myself and all that, but said, all right, let me just do it. Once I did that, what it did was it just opened up a lot of things for me, because after Pellichoopulu, a couple of people in the industry also, with love also comes hate. Like, you know, so they kind of put me down. They said, you're a newcomer, you don't know how the industry works.
Right.
And, you know, tomorrow nobody will know your name. Just that the film is a hit, but you have to work with bigger actors for you to actually come into the limelight.
Sure.
So then I realized, what do the big actors do? They just acted.
Yeah.
So you just have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
So you just need to know that if I'm then I consciously made an effort to note down the highest TRP shows, try to get a spot in there, promote my film there, just be a part of shows. Just act as well, and that phenomenally changed everything.
Was it easy to get into these shows with high TRPs? Did they
So because I'm a filmmaker and I have promotions also to do, so it was like a win-win for the thing. So I went ahead and I did it. A lot of filmmakers don't do that, because they just think it is beneath them to be in front of the camera in a weird way. So
I'm the artist, not the paint.
yeah, not a lot of people do that. He's just a jester, he's acting and all that. But you need to put yourself out there.
It's not as easy as it looks.
Yeah, because fame is a tool. And the moment you actually detach yourself emotionally to the highs of fame and start looking at it as a tool and how to use it in your profession, then I think it's a great power.
But what do you appreciate more? Or like, what do you enjoy more? Acting or directing?
Both in a way, because the thing is, when I was directing, I needed to always have control of everything. I had an OCD for anything that was going on. So I used to look at the light, how it is placed, or how it's bouncing off, what is the sound that's coming in, what is the performance that's happening, the sound, everything. But when you're acting, you're not in control of any of the crafts. You just are one of the things that happen in front of the camera, right? So then when I came into these shoes, I had to really, really put my ego aside as a filmmaker and just learn and see things from another perspective. And that gave me an understanding about how I should treat my actors. Because when I just walked in onto set, there are 60, 120 people who are not under my command. And I just have to observe them all and just come into one space. I cannot be a reckless guy shouting it out because I'm a first-time actor. I'm doing small roles. So for me, I quickly understood that you have to treat them like a baby. I used to hate actors getting into caravans. I never had caravan on my set at all. But now I understood that it's actually a necessity. It's not a luxury. Because they need to isolate from the chaos that's on a film set. Get into the mind of the character, understand their dialogues, have a clear-cut communication with the director, and come on set, let go.
And perform.
And that made me more sensitive towards how I was directing actors.
Sure.
So it's a huge thing.
Great learning experience.
Great learning. And from there, I very soon realized that whatever stereotypes I fill my head with, constantly break them and try to look at it from a different perspective. So.
Yeah, but there's so many actors, I don't know if it's unfortunate or fortunate, but I would say more unfortunate that in India, majority of the actors, they're somewhat born into a family because of nepotism. It's just become a family sort of a business. Whereas in Hollywood, you would not have Johnny Depp's son becoming an actor or DiCaprio's son, so on and so forth. What are your views on nepotism? Is it good or is it something to get away from?
So, again, I think it has a very negative connotation, the word nepotism. But I also feel that if you look at it from their perspective, it is just natural to them. It's like a family business.
Right.
And some people have no other option but to just follow the footsteps of the father. And can you empathize with that guy who wants to actually prove to the father that he is also worth something?
Yes.
But he didn't have to go through that struggle, those which makes Amitabh Bachchan became Amitabh Bachchan because he went through that struggle. Abhishek Bachchan didn't go through that struggle. Thus, he's nowhere close to being in 10% of what his dad was.
So that's what we can never quantify struggle. Struggle is very, very relative.
Okay.
So I don't think that
Abhishek Bachchan didn't struggle.
So
he did.
He studied majority of his life in Switzerland.
So
he comes back and his father also told him, come to India and learn the language.
We were having this discussion earlier where you were saying that tere paas paisa hai, khush rahe. It's the same thing that you're saying as well. Because I'm sure he had money, but his struggle may have been real. You never know.
So what happens is when you're writing also, and this is a very interesting story that I wanted to explore and write as well. I've seen people who are overburdened by the shadow of their ancestors. And that trauma is very real because that leads them to drug abuse, substance abuse, and eventually probably suicide also. In certain cases. Because when you're on ground zero, there's absolute power in having nothing and growing from there. It's challenging. I know there's a lot of ups and downs, but when you have something to match up to and you cannot, it's like Gandhi's son. You end up like a tragedy or you try to win. And I think those things are not quantifiable, and I don't think we can ever understand the pain that they also go through.
I agree. It's a tough one.
So I think it's a very complex story to write also. To actually look at.
I don't know. I just see it in a different aspect. I'm like, boss. I think that hunger which comes in that person, to become to reach that stage compared to I have to match up to my father's expectation. At least you've got this 1 in a billion chance to be on a screen and
but like see, I'll tell you what, like there are so many people, like like he said that he went on stage and you were acting and you were you were a natural.
Right.
And it came off well. Like Surya just said that, I watched you and you were such a natural.
Right.
It didn't come from you, it came from him.
Right.
But there are so many people like Fardeen Khan. Okay,
Right.
as an example, when he was on stage, you could tell that this man cannot act. Like it was pretty evident. Like sadly, I'm not going to be bad towards him, but it was quite evident. Like that's exactly why he was unsuccessful probably, and he should have pursued something else. But he kept pursuing that, and it looked so unnatural.
Yeah.
Right.
So my question is that, like, does it come naturally, or is there things you can do,
with it, or
you're born with it? What is it like?
So that is what I am very clear about. This one thing that talent does not equate success.
Yeah.
There are tons of talented people out there, but unfortunately, we'll have to tell everybody this also, that if you think you have an aesthetic, you have talent, doesn't equate to success at all. That's a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
And if you think that the end game of talent is success, then you're in for a very rocky ride.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, if you have talent, you have the perspective to see things very differently. And if you do not enjoy that as a whole, and you only look at materialistic things, like have I become this, like a metric, if you look at yourself like a metric, you're going to suffer all throughout.
Sure.
Because there is no end game to this.
Yeah.
There's no one solid big actor who's going to always be satisfied.
Correct.
The most successful guy, the richest guy, and the poorest guy, they have two things. They have one thing in common. They both want more.
Yeah, they all want more.
Yeah, so there's never going to end.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to enjoy acting for the experience of it, I think that guy is successful.
Great.
And I think that we'll have to redefine as success.
Something very interesting also what's happening is become a geographical problem right now in the countries. With forever Indian cinema was just seen from the lens of Bollywood, Hindi speaking cinema, whereas so much more creative content is being created in the southern states from Kannada films, Tamil films, Telugu industry, but there's always in the shadows of the Hindi film industry, maybe because there was bigger numbers, bigger collections perhaps, but now like people like Mahesh Babu, for example, came out and said Bollywood cannot afford me. So there's a seismic shift happening in Indian industries like that. What do you think is going on right now? What's the future? Like will South, like with RRR, grossed 1,000 crores,
Pushpa,
KGF 2 and all. These are some big movies and outstanding, like Allu Arjun, outstanding acting in the Pushpa. That is some swagger he pulled off, which even Ranveer cannot pull off in a role like that. So, like, what do you think is happening right now?
See, that's what I think when I look at it from a different perspective. A lot of things, this is the information era. That's what they call it, right?
Yeah.
So, way too much information. There's way too much content. And I think it's becoming like one of those wacky Japanese TV shows that we never understand. The world is turning out to be like that because all kinds of weird things are happening. And I don't think we can really compartmentalize anything into a language or a thing, because all barriers are being broken. These are just points of discussions that we can talk about, irk someone and actually become a trending topic on Twitter. But all of that is momentary because a lot of people in rural areas are also watching Korean dramas with subtitles and other audio languages. Nobody talks about that. That's silently happening. It's an amalgamation of culture, and I'm thinking just like how we make films, be open to it and let the metamorphosis happen.
Yes.
And direct your life in the way you want to direct it. And I think filter out all the other things. So I don't think that there is, I don't see things in that metric at all. Like this is the national language and this is the thing. I think it is evolution. Eventually art is going to, everybody is going to become brown one day.
And and people are going to find its way to good content. I think like whatever good content is, people are going to find it.
So now at least we have the option of actually finding what we want, and the filmmaker finding his audience. I don't think we should limit it to just language.
Like there's some great movies like which were flops when they got released, but 3-4 years later, like Big Lebowski, for example, great movie, flop, but it becomes a hit 4-5 years later. Andaz Apna Apna, flop, becomes a hit 3-4 years later.
But that's the thing, ahead of its time probably.
Right.
So how can you, how can the director understand what's ahead of its time, what is relevant. Like, is that a tough question that you guys, like, you face in this thing? Is my film relevant to the time that we're in?
So
is that a question you think about?
Yeah, I think about that, and I think my answer is a film is an emotional transaction,
Right.
and emotions are universal. The moment you understand human psychology, and if you look at characters empathetically,
Yes.
no matter what the cultural context is, you will still be relatable, if not now, some other point of time.
Correct.
But you can never reverse engineer the same.
Yeah.
Because there are structures, there is everything. What you can do as a filmmaker is find your honesty.
Yes.
Like, if you can dig from that well of emotions that you have, be honest to that, and try to recreate a certain emotion that you deeply feel about,
Sure.
and personify the different perspectives of debate as characters, and try to kind of talk about it, and then do something honest, there is going to be some kind of relevance.
Okay.
And if your end game is whether it makes money or not, that's a different question.
Exactly. No.
And I don't think anybody knows.
No, you cannot tell. Like, you cannot tell. All you can do is, like, be honest, like you said, and put yourself out there, and
Because there are firms which do predictive analysis, and apparently there are 750 variables, including political situation and weather conditions. So how can you control the commercials of a film by just making your craft well?
Yeah, because I think that's sort of a pressure which you come up when you come up with a script. By the time your script is made and by the time it's released, it's a 2-year, 18-month sort of a period. So you sometimes have to predict the future. Like, am I making a film for the current, what the masses like, for the current trend, or do I just take a complete shot in the dark?
No, but like this, what we're talking about is like risk assessment
Right.
for the film.
Right.
Once, I guess it is also a business. You must realize that it's a business.
Correct.
And the failure to success ratio is the worst in this industry. I think 90% fail.
Yes.
So and assessment like this is like, I don't know if it works 100% or it doesn't work, because I don't know. I have not been in any kind of experience to say anything.
Right.
But I think it makes the people who are spending this much money, for example, the producers or the distributors who are buying it, and they do this kind of the 750 check or whatever, and then they feel a little more secure, or you feel that is it relevant, the check? Does it really help?
So, to be honest, nothing works. I mean, nobody can predict it. And, people are in it because of the rush of the gamble that they're doing. It's like a roulette table.
Yeah.
And people love the rush.
Yeah.
And that's why they come back and honestly burn money or not burn money.
Yeah.
But just like we spoke earlier, that dynamic is also constantly changing. Today it's a subscription game, right? No matter what, your credit card is being swiped, and they're going to just give you content. Now, what is a hit and what is a flop?
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, so you like something, you don't like something. The OTT is going to buy it for the same price.
For sure.
So the risk is mitigated to a certain extent. It is kind of minimal now, but we have to be aware of the business now, and try to understand the constant shift in dynamic, and try to assess the risk that way, and keep your budgets to a minimal. And also the most important point that a lot of filmmakers miss is that they all think that from the start to the end it's a very creative process. No, it is as close to engineering as possible. You need to understand line production, because once you write a screenplay, there ends your creativity, because you just have very minimal ways to actually talk to the actor and try to get those aesthetics done, but it is all about time and budget. So you have to clock your time, just like even in this interview we're clocking time constantly, and we're working according to the specifications of the DSLR. So in a way it is all engineered, and we have to be aware of that and also balance that creativity. That's a tough task, but it's challenging for a few.
It's a very, very interesting field, I must say, because you're using a bit of everything. How many people are on set at one time? How many people are you managing?
Because I have done a small budget film, there were 65 to 80 people on set.
You have to control all 65, 80 people.
Yeah,
make sure they're not slacking, they're all on point.
Is this all the director's job?
No. So we have production managers, and we also have line producers. We have different posts for different this thing. There's a hierarchy in the direction department. First director who's clocking time. Second director is taking care of different departments. So there's schedule and time, schedule and budget. These are the two variables around which film production works. but yeah, I think it is a constant thing. You have to be aware of all these things. Otherwise,
Like, I don't know, from the outside perception I've heard is that sometimes you have to play to the egos of certain actors as such, as that's also one big problem.
yeah,
Many
constantly.
times,
I mean, in every field.
and
I
because
think.
I heard Salman Khan, for example, is not on to set on time. It take 5-6 hours delay.
I think that's always a given. But what this thing is is the producer always on your thing saying budget is this and how much have you spent? Do you have like a cost analysis going on all the time?
That's what I'm telling you. I mean, 65 people to 80 people on my set on a small budget film, but now the medium budget films that I'm doing now and I'm helming now will definitely have 150 people. And Bahubali and all these RRR, I cannot even imagine the kind. It's like madness. One small fun thing about Salman Khan I would like to tell you is this joke that was going around. Apparently, one director calls up Salubhai and basically tells him you have to tell him to come for a 6 o'clock shot, and then apparently 6 a.m. shot. So the producer says, you only talk to him. Then there's a conference call and he's on the call and like tomorrow 6 o'clock shot, sunrise. And he says, "Abey, doodh wala uthta hai 6 baje ko." I don't know if that's even true, but it's so epic.
But knowing Sallubhai, it just sounds like so much.
It's so fun.
No,
What a
like,
swag, no?
But I don't know why certain actors, even I've heard of there's certain actress who only will start the shoot if she gets a Balinese coconut, not the desi coconut, a Balinese coconut. Such sort of ridiculous sort of riders come alongside it, which kind of spoils the entire.
I really
like, why is there not that much professionalism? I feel in the Indian actor.
Now it is coming. I mean, a lot of things have changed, and a lot of things are becoming very professional on set and off set and everything. But what happens is this is bound to happen because suddenly, when you look at somebody on when they're inflated projection 2K or whatever, and they assume this demigod status, and they are becoming relatable to you, and they automatically become an idol, and the way they are treated in public and outside is huge amount of respect and everything. But as an actor, you don't know why you got that. With that comes a great deal of insecurity.
So you're believing your own
so they constantly want that attention to be coming
validation.
in.
Constantly seek validation because I've done so much, I've done this much. I mean, not all actors, but I'm just saying fame does that to you. And when you're if it's a camera, the camera doesn't emote at all, but you're just like a living prop, but so many technicians and everything are working on you and writing your character, making you the image that you've become.
Right.
That inside you're so hollow because what have I done to get this? So imagine dealing with that. So,
oh my God,
so that validation is constant. I mean, for them, you need that, and suddenly you show some sign of disrespect.
You're done.
You've hit a very deep trauma for that person.
But that's just so unfortunate in that person. But one thing we were just talking about OTT platforms. Anupam Kher was talking on a podcast. He says the problem with OTTs is somewhat ruining the creativity because before the aspect was you're coming, so 1.5 hours you have to sit and watch until you take a break for a bathroom break or something. So thus they had that artistic freedom to build up the character or something. Now, if this movie is boring, let's watch the next movie. Now that thing has come about, which was not possible before. If I bought the ticket, I am sitting and seeing these 3 hours.
But that's evolution, right?
But that's going to affect his creative freedom because he realizes these 5 minutes are getting a little dragging, boring. I need to speed it up and put a joke in somewhere.
No, but why would he think that? He's
evolving
honest.
with the.
But me as a viewer, I'll be like,
No, but
boring.
like he has an honest vision and that he's executed. Now, whether you see it later and you don't enjoy it, that's up to you, right? Like
but that's not what he was intending to be. It's like a chef has made a beautiful dish, and I'll say, I'll microwave and eat the rest of it tomorrow. That's not giving justice.
But that's consumerism. Like the consumer is like he's going to receive it how he wants to receive it. You can't tell him now you have to receive it this way only. That's not how it works. No? Like, abhi you eat my food, otherwise I'll kick you. Matlab, aisa to nahi
hai. So there was one thing. I mean, black and white era, if I may call it that. So at that point of time, there was a train shot this wide train shot of a train just going like that, and people would flock to the theaters and watch that film.
Yeah.
It's just a film of a train passing by.
Yeah.
And then what happened, the director got an idea. He said, why don't I cut to a 30-degree angle and put a close? So automatically your brain pieces it together.
Right.
So then it comes like
Continuity,
that.
yeah.
So then they played that film and people ran out of the theater. Compared to now, that edit time has reduced to probably 1.3 seconds or something,
Right.
and your brain can still mash it up.
Match it up, yeah.
So I think it's a process of evolution, and I think if you want to do something relatable and honest, you also have to stay relevant, because you are also evolving with the times.
Correct.
And you're also watching this kind of content,
Right.
and it's about that.
Yeah.
So
I really feel that, because you have to be relevant to the times, and you have to understand that this is an OTT platform, and the guest has, the user has an option to shut it or watch something else whenever you want.
True.
But you can't be dejected by the fact saying, oh no, now that he's not sitting for 1.5 hours, my craft can't be made.
the problem
you have
is-
to adapt to it, right?
Yeah.
you have to, and you are making films for an audience.
But see, the respect you get in the industry is based on, he delivered a blockbuster. Thus, the respect will be there. Thus, you'll get more and more work. If you're delivering things which is considered artsy, but is not really getting eyeballs to the screen, then he will suffer in the long run. No,
Correct.
But see, they will suffer in the long run, but it depends on what
It's a personal choice.
Yeah, it's a personal choice. It depends on what you want to do.
No, so there was a famous director, filmmaker, who mentioned about this. Are you making films for yourself, or are you making it for other people? That's the question.
Yeah.
Chicken or the egg. So then he said, what if I was the only person on this planet? Would I still be making films? The answer is very clear. You're making it for other people, so that you are communicating something within you to other people.
Correct.
So you'll have to find your audience, and you also have to inform that to your producer. You have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And all of them have to be on one page.
Yeah.
That, okay, we are doing it for these kind of people, for this satisfaction that we're getting.
Correct.
And unless you are promising your producer 100 crores and you're doing something artsy, that is wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
so if you're doing something artsy and you're happy with it, your producer is happy with it, everybody, all the stakeholders are happy with it,
then
then
what's the
you're
problem?
ethically right.
Yeah.
So that doesn't matter.
Do you think can you do an artsy film with a big budget, or artsy films are always low budget?
So basically, there's a sweet spot. I believe that there's a sweet spot. I think that for me,
Like Bombay Velvet, for example.
What is an artsy film? Bombay Velvet.
Yeah, Bombay Velvet can be considered an artsy film,
By
but the budget was big, so it was an experiment.
Zindagi Na
Like Gangs of
Zindagi Na
Wasseypur.
Boilegi
it's different for
Dobara.
different. It's relative.
Yeah, but still, I feel it's artsy only. Like,
Yeah, so that's what you feel as artsy, I
May
might
not.
not.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what?
yeah.
I mean, commercial cinema for somebody in Sri Lanka might be artsy.
Correct.
So you never know. So that's debatable again. But yeah, I think there is a sweet spot, and there's a lot of technicality involved. As in,
Which thing would you say is a sweet spot of artsy cinema?
so I think that if your aesthetics are right and you still tell a simple story,
Yeah.
and the entire nation kind of comes to the theater and actually applauds it and feels what the filmmaker intended the audience to feel, I think that is a sweet spot.
Okay.
Dangal.
Yeah. Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Dangal is a sweet spot.
Dangal became such a hit in China,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
example.
So
They
if-
the
loved
highest
it.
grossing film ever, no?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
giving birth. I mean, it's like
It's like today in Hollywood, for example, they have to make their movies very pro-China because the Chinese market is massive.
Massive.
And that just shows that, like, what Hollywood is listening to another country, but it's actually happening. You'll have to make certain films like that, But yeah, wow, it's very, very, very interesting, this world, huh?
very, very.